Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. It is late here in the evening in the UK. I think it's around about nearly 9 p.m. And the Alexa devices event has been happening this afternoon and this evening, where they have announced not only a bunch of new devices, but most importantly, and probably much more interestingly, this new updates to come to Alexa itself as a platform, Alexa AI. So, what I thought I would do is jump in with some hot takes and break it down for you a little bit and help you just understand a little bit about what has been going on with this new Alexa system. So, let's jump into it and take a look at what's been announced today with the Alexa AI solutions and system. And I put together this slide quickly, so sorry if this is a little bit rough and ready, but wanted to get this information out to you all as soon as we could. Okay, first up in the Alexa update is, well, what did they announce? So a whole bunch of new generative tools are coming to the system this year. Now, Alexa for a long time has relied upon natural language processing, natural language understanding, basically taking in the inputs that you as a user give it and working out where to fill in the gaps, the blanks, a whole lot of orchestration to essentially fill in what are called slots, which is the content that we are trying to fulfill. Now, this with a large language model changes quite significantly, and these new tools are going to allow us to bring the power of something similar to like ChatGPT or Bard to the Alexa ecosystem. On stage, they demoed a bunch of new use cases showing just how the actual base Alexa functionality is going to get more interesting and be able to speak much more intuitively. But here are some of the big things that are bringing. The new advances are going to bring essentially generative AI to the Alexa platform. That includes Alexa skills. It's going to make them faster and easier to build, crucially, but it's also going to give them all new sorts of capabilities, which we'll get into in a minute. It's going to really accelerate the time to market to get these things live. No longer are you going to have to think just about building a great UX. That's still going to be necessary for sure. But it's going to give much easier ways of bringing large catalogs of content and APIs and other systems into the Alexa ecosystem, even if you have built stuff on other large language models. So for many people that might have been building with Amazon Bedrock, Amazon and AWS's attempt to give a marketplace for building around large language models, you might have built something with some other custom model that's running on AWS. Maybe that's Claude from Anthropic, or using Llama, for example, in an open source fashion. You're going to be able to bring some of that stuff to your Alexa skill projects now and make, essentially, the third point here, much more natural conversations. So this is some of the kind of really big benefits of this tech coming to Alexa. Now, the key announcement. Let's move myself out of the way over here. The key announcements. The first is the ability to integrate APIs with Alexa's new large language model. Basically, rather than just all of your content having to be manually broken down and put into the right places and uploaded into your skill architecture so it can be found through turn-by-turn conversations, APIs are going to now be able to talk directly to the large language model. So if you want to feed a bunch of data to it from an API, the large language model is going to be able to understand that, interpret it, fulfill those slot values for you. And secondarily, there was a bunch of new smart home tools as well. Now, I know that's not as relevant to many of us, but those of you that are in the smart home space, or you've got devices, or you're thinking about how do you integrate with IoT, there's a bunch of stuff there, which will also allow the large language model to interact with something called the action controller and the dynamic controller, basically allowing you to tap into things like building scenes and routines with your smart home lights, locks, and all other manners of smart home kit. So that's pretty cool as well if you are in the kind of hardware space. So what does AI in the Alexa ecosystem look like? They shared this diagram, which I think is maybe a little bit hard to interpret, but I'll try and kind of do my best to kind of break it down. Basically, what this allows is that for those of us that are developers like us at Vixen Labs, or if you're a content creator, to be able to bring a few different things at the time when you're building the Alexa skill. So you're going to bring a skill manifest, essentially telling the overarching system of Alexa what your skill does, what it's there for, what the descriptions are, where are the endpoints. You're going to bring the APIs. So let's just say, for example, you were building a flight booking system for an airline. You'd be bringing a description that says, hey, I'm a skill that can build and book flights. You would bring an API saying, here are all of the details about my flights and availability. And you would bring in content, for example, the descriptions of the flights, the text, the links to the websites, etc. All of that stuff is going to go in, along with other applications that can be pulled in via their APIs. And Alexa is going to bring this orchestration layer, this API orchestration, to ingest the content, pull from searches, attribute the right searches to the provider, in this case our airline, for example, handle the content management, so pulling in the right, for example, picture for that flight, for example, onto a Echo device, or maybe pulling up a seat map, for example, and it's going to hold anything else it has in the long-term memory. And the language model is going to do the interpretation of that and then feed all that out to the customer. So we're going to be able to bring in a lot more rich content into this experience. Now, this is all quite technical, but what does it actually mean? Well, it's going to enable new types of applications and tools to actually be created. Think about things like restaurant reservations. A few years ago at I/O from Google, we saw this demo of Duplex, this system that they were building that would allow you to essentially like book a restaurant reservation using AI. It's never really come to full fruition. And the reason why many of these use cases, like restaurant bookings or booking a flight or like what seat you want at a cinema and things like that, is that they involve quite a lot of bespoke, nuanced, detailed information. It's quite hard for a natural language processing system to just handle all of that variability. But a language model is much more capable of doing that because it understands the idea of context, it understands the things that you're feeding it in a much more robust way. And so that's going to enable all sorts of new types of use cases. Things like, for example, and they showed some of this in the demo today, restaurant reservations, or like I say, booking a flight. These types of use cases that have a lot of variations can now become possible. You're going to be able to do things that language models we know are very good at, things like summaries. So being able to feed it all the content, for example, from the New York Times website and being able to distill that down into snappy little summaries via Alexa would be a good example. We know our partners in the gaming space are really excited about this because they'll be able to create more immersive characters. They also demoed character.ai coming to the platform as well. The ability to talk to like immersive characters in games that have an ability to speak to you in a much more natural way. And I mentioned before, some of these flexible smart home controls are also coming. I think Mark from Amazon, kind of said this, and I think this is kind of a wise point. The most profound technologies are those that disappear and they weave themselves into the fabric of everyday life. This is the whole point about this. Alexa is going to start to sound and talk to you like a real person, and Amazon really emphasized this, that they're going to make Amazon Alexa feel a much more personal system. And I think this is the important thing for all of us that want to build on top of this platform, is how are we going to make our Alexa experiences feel more personal? The big takeaway from here is that with an LLM powering something like Alexa, it enables us to create stuff that's much more natural, much more immersive, and much more data rich. And therefore, it can actually be just a ton more helpful. But one of the real challenges of doing this is about creating a system that we can personalize ourselves. So if you're a brand or business thinking about now getting back into the voice space with this new technology, it means you can give a much richer experience, but we also have to be able to feed it the controls, the personalities, the content types, the conversational domains that you want this to be able to talk to at the same time. And that's going to be crucial. So I look forward to working with some of our brand partners, I think, in the coming months on how do we actually personalize their brand to be able to be given over to a large language model to do a lot of this interpretation. Are the APIs and your data endpoints in the right spot to be able to actually be fed to these models? And how are we going to control what you want your skill or kind of application to show up and actually do in this ecosystem? But I've got to say, my big takeaway from this is it's super exciting. I think we've been waiting a long time to see Alexa get these types of capabilities. And I like the way that Amazon are going about it with a much more kind of on the rails approach, so to speak. They're not just kind of throwing this out there into the wild. This is going to be something developers can really work with and interact with. So keen to get your feedback and thoughts. Drop your comments below. Thanks for your attention. Sorry, this was a bit of a hot take. It's late. I'm warm. It's sweaty and horrible here. And it's been very wet all day in the UK. So hopefully wherever you're watching this, you're better off. And I hope you're doing well. If you've got thoughts, let us know. Drop a comment below. See you on the next one. Ciao.